All right, we are live for another edition of the Pick and Roll NBA podcast featuring our faces this time. He's Mike Niddle. I'm Josh McCauley. We're going to focus mostly, as you can see by the description on this, on the huge trade, Uncle Drew to Beantown. Talk about ramifications of that, predictions, and then we're also going to get into a little bit, look how far we've come. The Celtics from 4 years ago, where they are now, even last year, only returning 4 out of 12 active players. So almost a whole new team there, Mike, and now it's headlined by Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy how this past few years, the Celtics went from Eastern Conference Finals to making a huge trade after a while, sending everybody to Brooklyn, getting all the picks. You go down the line, Celtics get 20 wins, Celtics get 25, they get 30-something, and then ended up last year getting the number one seed and 52, 53 wins in the regular season. And everybody's thinking, wow, this is great. Okay, let's keep this rolling into next year and possibly win the Eastern Conference. But I'll just get into starting my take right away, Josh, if that's fine with you.
Go for it.
But so overall, the trade is Kyrie Irving to the Boston Celtics for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, who is a recent signee, very young power forward / center, who was a draft and stash for the Celtics from 2 years ago. Was going to sign and play with the Celtics. He was signed, but then they traded him. And the rights to the Brooklyn Nets pick for next year, which is the 2018 pick. So that's a large haul to send to Cleveland for just one player, for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And this is where I am a big fan of Danny Ainge finally doing something. I'm just going to say I support the trade overall. I support it. When the Celtics got 52 wins last year, most people thought, this is great. We just need Gordon Hayward and we'll be fine. But you really looked at that team and how it was kind of overdoing itself. It was kind of just like exceeding all expectations, but that was just because it was just kind of luck of the Irish kind of thing. But Danny Ainge and the ownership with Grossbeck and all of them looked at this team and decided, this is the bridge Celtics. This is the bridge team that'll take you from the trade from a few years ago that sent Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, everybody out, to a actual contending perennial team. And this is the move that needed to be made that team. So no longer are they the bridge Celtics. They are the Boston Celtics ready to compete for Banner 18. Kyrie Irving on this team is a good fit. Overall, not going to have as much ISO time as he really did in Cleveland. He had a lot of ISO time in Cleveland, really can control the ball. But his offense ability, he's a true bona fide superstar that's 3 years younger than Isaiah Thomas and healthier. His ankle issues are kind of out of the way now. He's gone past that, really grown into his own. But bona fide point guard, can really distribute the ball when necessary. Only averages about 6 assists a game. He's a very similar kind of player to Isaiah Thomas. Can distribute the ball when he wants, but he's a perennial knockdown shooter when he wants it. He can knock down the three. We saw, what was it, last year? 2 years ago, in the finals, his knockdown three over Steph Curry. Absolutely incredible shot, but that's what he can do consistently. He's 6'3", so he's bigger than Isaiah Thomas, can do better against bigger guards. Defense is just as bad as Isaiah Thomas, so you're not losing anything there. Might be a little bit better, honestly. And his ability for the A, pick and roll is great, and B, the ability to drive is great. So he's a good fit for this team overall. And then you put him into the picture of the rest of this team. It's a very new team. Only 4 players from last year left on the Celtics. We'll get into that later. But he's a good fit for this team, and I think a lot of Boston fans are going to like him. It was a ballsy trade for Danny Ainge to do this. You trade one of the most loved players on the Celtics, and Isaiah Thomas, who quickly was loved by this team. Jay Crowder, very underrated, but good contract, good player, heart of the team. A very young and up-and-coming center, and the possibly top 5 pick for next year from Brooklyn. So it's a lot to give up, but you have to give something to get something. you may lose this trade after a while. The Celtics could easily lose this trade. Isaiah Thomas is going to fit well in Cleveland. He does exactly the same thing but Kyrie did, but he'll pass the ball a little bit more. So I think that overall, both teams are going to be just as good. Maybe the Celtics will be a little bit worse in the record-wise when it comes to, I think they're going to get like 48 wins instead of 52 because a little bit of chemistry issues that might happen. But overall, risky trade. This is a trade made for the long haul. The Celtics did not want to give Isaiah Thomas the max deal. I think I knocked down all my points, Josh. So it's up to you now.
I mean, if I give letter grades, I would give Cleveland an A plus. I mean, you think about it. You have a player who demands out. He's not going to resign there in 2 years. He doesn't want to play with LeBron anymore. You have an issue. If you keep him, LeBron is 100% gone. If you get rid of him, which you should, you have none of the leverage. You are essentially going to have to move him for the best of a pile of not very good packages. And we can look at the second best package that was on the table was the one from Milwaukee, which was Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Middleton, and a 2021 heavily protected first-round pick. That was the second best offer. And that's an okay offer, but certainly not for a player of Kyrie Irving's caliber. That is like a Kevin Love kind of trade package. And the next best offer, really the only other serious offer that was ever made, because the Knicks offers of Melo, I'm not going to count them because Melo had to sign off, and he said he wasn't going to. So those don't even count. The next best offer was from Phoenix. Eric Bledsoe, Miami's first-round pick in 2 years, I believe, lottery protected, and then Dražen Bender, a guy who looked completely overmatched and doesn't really fit what Cleveland's trying to do. So you look at those two trade packages, and you're like, okay, the bar is kind of set in terms of what Cleveland could potentially get back. And you look at the returns that other teams got on star players. The Jimmy Butler return, not what we thought it was going to be, especially when Chicago kicked in their own first-round pick for really no reason. The Paul George, the laughable return of Oladipo and Sabonis. You look at all that, and you say, okay, you could easily make the argument that Paul George is a better player. And I would make the argument that Jimmy Butler is a better player. It's close, but I would make the argument Jimmy Butler is a better player overall. So you look at the trade packages that Chicago and Indy got back respectively, and you're like, there's no way in hell Cleveland's going to win this trade. For them to make the trade that they just did, to essentially seamlessly replace Kyrie Irving, because another isolation-heavy, high-volume scoring point guard who doesn't play a lick of defense. Granted, is a couple years older, but Cleveland's in a win-now mode, and they're clearly not afraid to offer him a max. So you almost seamlessly replace Kyrie Irving. You acquire the one piece that you tried to acquire all offseason, which was a wing player, a 3-and-D player who could help neutralize Kevin Durant in your inevitable NBA Finals meeting. In Jay Crowder, you get one of the most underrated players in the NBA, a tenacious perimeter defender who will help slow down, not stop, but slow down Kevin Durant, and a guy who shoots 42% on catch-and-shoot threes, so he fits into that offense seamlessly. You get Ante Zizic, whatever, who knows. And then you get potentially at least the top 5 pick, potentially the number 1 pick, if not somewhere in that range. So you look at what Cleveland got, I mean, holy crap. And you know what? We'll get to this in a minute, but don't be surprised if Cleveland's not making that pick and it ends up in OKC or New Orleans, but we'll get to that in a few minutes at the deadline. And then you look at what Boston got. They got essentially a younger, taller Isaiah Thomas who is under team control for 2 more years. However, Isaiah was going to re-sign if they offered him the max. Kyrie, you have no assurances. He said they have a strong chance to re-sign him. Let's see what happens down the road. You know, we'll see what the landscape of the NBA is, because even this offseason, I mean, the NBA is tilted on its side. You get a very similar player. But what's more important for me is over the course of this offseason, not just in this trade, but certainly in this trade, the Celtics have gutted their defensive identity. Avery Bradley, gone. granted, gone in a separate trade, but gone. Morris is an okay defensive player. Jay Crowder, the heart and soul of that team, and probably the best defender on that team, in my opinion, is gone. Granted, Gordon Hayward is underrated defensively, but he's not nearly on the level of Jay Crowder. So two of your three best defensive players are gone, the other one being Marcus Smart. So your defensive identity, which to me was the biggest thing that helped this team, is gone. And also, Isaiah kind of bought in to the Brad Stevens way. Kyrie is a much more headstrong player, and I think he'll fit in eventually, but I don't know if it's going to be as seamless as IT did it. And keep in mind, it took IT 2 years to get to this point. Kyrie's got 2 years left on his deal. You don't want him to just be figuring it out in his walk year, because if he decides it's not for him, he's gone. So Cleveland, for me, I mean, they did incredible. And you got to give their UMass alumni, their Eisenberg alumni general manager, huge props for having the balls to pull this off. Danny Ainge, it's a good trade. They're going to take a step back because they've lost a lot of their defensive pieces. You know, Kyrie is still a hell of a player. He's a top 15 player, probably top 10. I would say top 10. But he's at the lower half of the top 10. He's maybe 10 or 11. But your defensive identity is gone. And now you are essentially starting over with a brand new team. You have to build chemistry. As we mentioned, there are only 4 pieces left on this team from last year. Your 2 best players have not been on this team before now, which is Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. So you have to really accelerate this chemistry building process if you want to compete with Cleveland come conference finals time. Do they improve their future? Yeah. This core is locked in together for a little while longer when the Warriors break up and either LeBron leaves or, starts to wear down. But overall, I'm not impressed, and I think this is a huge risk for the Celtics, and I don't know if it's going to turn out. And I really question why the Brooklyn pick is now all of a sudden available for Kyrie Irving, but when it was probably the piece that would have finished the Paul George trade or would have finished the Jimmy Butler trade, who is a better player, also under team control for 2 more years, and is even cheaper and better complements what you're trying to do. I question why the Brooklyn pick is now available and it wasn't available before. So I would give the Celtics a B-. I mean, that's fair. Yeah. That is completely fair. I'm hearing people being like, they're now the best team in the East. No, they're not on par with the Cavs. They've taken a step back. And honestly, if Otto Porter keeps developing the way he did last year, I would put the Wizards above the Celtics. I would. No. They're still – see, we can agree to disagree. That's fine. That's why sports are so great. But honestly, I think the Celtics – and your defensive mind point is great. They had a huge mindset for the past few years, and it was defense first. But the point becomes you're kind of treating your defense abilities, making that a little bit less than they were before, keeping some good defensive players. Now, mind you, and I'll get into this a little bit, it's kind of addition by subtraction. You're adding more minutes to young core players that you're believing in for years to come. So getting rid of Jay Crowder, getting rid of Isaiah, you're getting more minutes, technically, realistically, or, you're getting Kyrie, so he's taking up Isaiah's minutes. But then getting rid of Jay Crowder, there was a huge cluster at that small forward position. Brad Stevens loves the kind of no position game that we keep talking about where you just pass the ball all around, blah, blah, blah. But that allows, with Jay Crowder out, that allows more minutes for the players that obviously the Celtics are going to rely on heavily, especially for the more future, in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. That is a really, really big factor into this, is when you can get those 2 guys. Jaylen Brown in the Celtics' eyes is defensively one of the best wing defenders up and coming. Not on Avery Bradley's level, that's safe to say. But you see his defensive abilities against LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals last year and against LeBron James, and that's really the guy you want to defend against. It's like with the Jay Crowder going to be defending against Kevin Durant in the finals. You want Jaylen Brown on LeBron James. He did a great job, especially for a rookie last year on LeBron James. So that's one of the big focuses for the Celtics is looking forward. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who's going to be able to stretch the floor for the team as well. Now,
you're kind of going away from the defensive mindset a little bit and more on the offensive mindset. Kyrie replaces Isaiah's offensive abilities. You're getting more offensive abilities from the wing. Marcus Morris, statistically the best Eastern Conference defender on LeBron James last year per 100 minutes. I know that's advanced statistics. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's something to think about. Celtics really have a glaring issue is down low still. Rebounding still has not been focused on. I don't think the Celtics are done this offseason. You still got about, a month till training camp. So that's where it's really going to become evident if the Celtics are really in for it this year or if this is more of a long-term deal. You have your core set for the years to come. You have youth. You have experience. And I think one person I really trust as a avid basketball watcher and viewer is Coach K at Duke, Coach Krzyzewski. And he said, and I know it's been a few years since then, it's been 6 years, but he said Kyrie Irving was the easiest player, and I know you could just be saying this just to say it, but I honestly take it as truth. Kyrie Irving is the easiest player he's ever had to coach in his entire life. He really buys in very quickly. He bought in Cleveland. Didn't really work out without LeBron there, but he didn't really have a good team around him. He bought in Cleveland, and I think he's going to buy in Boston. Brad Stevens is going to be a person that is really going to play a big role in this. If he can mesh this team together, that's going to play a big role. But if he can't, that's going to be issues. But I do think overall the Celtics are getting a little bit better by the subtraction. But I absolutely, if I put who wins this trade as of right now, it's Cleveland because of how much they got in return. And I cannot believe that Brooklyn pick was waiting till this. That's a huge point. Why is it waiting so long just for Kyrie? You could have gotten Jimmy Butler. You already knew you were going to get rid of Avery Bradley because he would have cost too much. But, I mean, why? But then again, this is a risky trade. This is something that Boston Celtics fans have been waiting for years. It's always Danny Ainge saying, I'm going to fleece somebody and absolutely fleece them for the top player. That's what OKC did with Paul George in Indiana.
Right, but Danny has now put himself in a position where if this Brooklyn pick – I mean, look, if the Nets are bad at the deadline, like if they're dead last or second to dead last in the NBA and Cleveland goes to make a move for another star caliber player, Danny Ainge will have been fleeced. Like, picture this, because I could see this happening 100%. I agree. After the trade deadline passes, if Cleveland has turned this trade into – they have IT – almost seamlessly replacing Kyrie because as of right now, they're similar players. Jay Crowder as the guy who's going to be able to take on Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson in the NBA Finals, and Kevin loves stretching the floor still. And Tristan Thompson and his offensive liabilities are gone, and DeMarcus Cousins is playing down low, stretching the floor as a stretch five. If the Nets are back at the deadline, I mean, Cleveland and their rookie GM will have just turned Kyrie Irving into Isaiah Thomas and DeMarcus Cousins and the one defensive piece they thought they needed. If that's the case, Danny Ainge will have been fleeced, not the fleecer. Yep. The only way Cleveland loses this trade, in my opinion, is if the Nets make the playoffs and this is not a lottery pick, which I don't think will happen. Even if this pick is like 9. This is a pretty decent
Also the factor of if I think Cleveland will lose this pick if LeBron leaves. Lose this trade if LeBron leaves because it's not a long-term thing. Celtics are looking more of it as a long-term thing, as you said earlier. Cleveland's looking as a win now. But, I mean, I'm okay, honestly. This is something that Boston fans have wanted for a while. Not being so worried about the fleecing. Just go make a trade and see if it works out. This is a calculated risk. And this is something that Boston is waiting for a long time, and that's what they're getting. So, I think it's a very fair trade overall. You got good players on both sides. You don't often see this balance of a trade between two competing teams in the same conference. This has not been seen before for a long time, at least. I can't even think the last time this has been happening before. But this is what you want to see: players moving around, but calculated risks, and that's what I like so much about this trade. I love Isaiah Thomas to death. I loved his game. He really, really ingrained himself into Boston. It's going to suck losing him. I hate the people that are burning his jersey. I hate the people that are ripping him.
I don't understand that.
No reason.
Come on, it's not his fault. He wanted to stay.
Isaiah Thomas did nothing wrong the entire 2+ years he was here. And now people are getting mad at him because he left. That's not even his decision to leave this team. Factor of, honestly, I mean, you got to feel bad for Jay Crowder.
Yeah.
You know, did you hear about his mother?
I did not. What happened with his mother?
Jay Crowder. So this trade went down, what, Wednesday? Tuesday? Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Jay Crowder's mother passed away on Tuesday.
Oh.
Jay Crowder's passing away of his mother and getting traded on the same day. That's a long time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's rough. So, I mean, we got to prayers out to that dude. I mean, oh, my goodness. But
that's a rough day.
Not to say such nobody cares about him. But,
I mean,
it's a fair trade both sides. And, you know,
yeah,
it has to be made the best team win. You know?
Yeah, I mean, what Cleveland has definitely done is, I mean, even if they don't make him trade at the deadline, LeBron now has something to think about. I mean, before he was gone. Now, if they don't make a move and they have a top 5 pick, you know, you look at someone they could bring in. DeAndre Ayton would be a great fit there. You move Tristan Thompson, get a different complementary perimeter player. Maybe you get lucky and the ping pong balls go your way for the 5th time this decade, and you get, or the time in the last 15 years, and you get, you know, Michael Porter or someone along those lines, whatever that point, the European point guard's name is, he could replace IT, or you can make a move.
Or the guy that just,
yeah. You know, if the Pelicans are out of it and the Davis-Cousins pairing isn't working, if the Nets are bad enough and that looks like it's going to be a top 5 pick, I could see New Orleans pulling the trigger on Tristan Thompson, the Nets pick, and maybe like a future Cavs unprotected first-round pick like 2022 or something like that. I could see them making a move for DeMarcus Cousins and just giving up and just cashing in, getting a high first-round pick. If OKC isn't working out, because I could see that pairing not working out, and Sam Presti is like, crap, I got to make a move to convince Westbrook to stay, a young player in the draft, a high draft pick, I could see Paul George getting moved.
Not to mention, it still could happen in this month or so, even though there's not many days left, this month and next month, D-Wade could be bought out and go to the Cavs right away. They still have the veteran minimum and the mid-level exception, I believe, available. They have signings. So, you know, that's a great point where this Cavs team could have just convinced LeBron James to stay and for a long time, and they can make their team even better. You know, their roster is pretty damn good as it is right now.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the options for LeBron. I mean, everyone keeps saying the Lakers. What if Paul George ends up in Cleveland? Why go to the Lakers when you have an established foundation in Cleveland?
The only thing would be affording him, which might not be easy.
I mean, it would come down to in the offseason, they'd probably have to move K Love. But look, I mean, if you get Paul George, you're going to play some combination of LeBron at small forward, Paul George at power forward, and probably switch him back and forth. You can play small ball all season, and you know what? That works now. So yeah, Kevin Love becomes an expendable piece, but that's a risk you're willing to take. And if you get DeMarcus Cousins, which I think might even be a better move, he complements Kevin Love. He's a better defensive player. He's going to neutralize Draymond Green, and he now has a 3-point shot, and he's not limited offensively. The problem for the Cavs is, you know, Golden State doesn't have to worry about Tristan Thompson. They don't even bother guarding him because he can't do anything. They can't do that with DeMarcus Cousins. He'll torch him for 40 points. He'll torch Zaza Pachulia and Draymond Green because I don't know if even Draymond can stop him. That's a hell of a move. And if you can convince DeMarcus that's the place to be, and you can convince LeBron to stay, you'd have to move Kevin Love out, but salary-wise, you could make it work. Everyone's got to take a little bit less money, but LeBron's done that before when he went to Miami. He did it when he came back. You could make it work. And then we're talking about a team that your window's extended for the next 4 years.
Right. And that's why this is such a difficult trade for both teams to make, but a important one for both teams to make at the same time. I think it's going to work out for both teams, especially if Kyrie resigns. Indications are that he wants to resign. He waived his trade kicker, which was like another $5.5 million just to come to the Celtics. That kind of shows me his. First of all, he wanted to get the hell out of Cleveland.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got lucky they didn't send him to Siberia. I mean, they could have sent him to Phoenix. I mean, you want to be the man in Phoenix? Fine.
Let me just say this. And I know reports right now are kind of crazy because, they want to make it look better or worse for teams than they actually are. But I think a lot of people are saying LeBron James really wanted, if the Cavs did trade Kyrie, I think he wanted them to trade him to the Phoenix Suns so that he could get not only what's his face?
You wanted Bledsoe and Jackson, which I don't think.
Jackson. It wouldn't have happened, but that's what they wanted. And so Isaiah's not the same as Bledsoe. He won't give the ball up as much, but it's definitely, I think, a possibility to say it could easily work out for the Cavs where they extend their window another 4 years or so. So
the great thing for Cleveland is you already know how a player like Isaiah is going to fit into your offense because Kyrie is a very similar player. So if anything, Isaiah is better catch and shoot. I mean, I think he had a higher catch and shoot percentage, and he can play off the ball. Kyrie really needs the ball to be effective. So I love it. I love it. I think it's a great fit. I don't think Cleveland's going to have to worry about reshaping how they do things. Their roster, other than adding in a great perimeter defender who just gives you another catch and shoot guy, I mean, think about it. There's times they could have Crowder and Korver out there. Done. Catch and shoot nightmare.
Right. I agree. Now, one thing that is an issue for Isaiah Thomas that I think a lot of the Celtics management really tried to want to get away from real quick was Isaiah's hip is an issue. That's going to be something that's brought up during the physicals. I heard that the physicals will probably be done either by the end of this week or early next week because there's no rush on anything.
Which I don't understand why anyone, the NBA aside, but why either of these teams, especially Cleveland, allowed this trade to become official without the physicals, unless Boston was holding him hostage and said, look, if you don't take this right now, it's off the table.
It could have been, and that's where Jimmy Ainge tries to make himself feel better by saying, I fleeced somebody, you didn't. Where it's a matter of Isaiah's hip is going to be a huge issue. A lot of Celtics reports coming out in the past month or so were saying, and the Celtics even said it themselves, Isaiah might not be ready for the start of the season. Now, in the long term of the season, if he's not healthy for the start of the season, he'll probably be ready for the middle of the season, and that'll be fine for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But the hip's an issue. He's a little older in that contract. The Celtics did not want to give him that contract. I just don't think he kept saying, I know you've probably heard this, but everybody's getting their share. It's my turn now. He wasn't going to take
it. Back him up.
The Brinks truck, load it into my house. But, even I don't really think that Isaiah Thomas is worth a max contract. He had 1 year of perennial all-star ability.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's 100% not worth a max contract. He's not.
That's what I'm saying. That's where this really becomes an upgrade from Isaiah Thomas to Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
That's where I really see the upgrade is he's not really a max contract player. He had 1 year of this sustained success. But Kyrie Irving has done it for 4 years now. He had a little ankle injuries in his first 2 years. But 4 years now, Kyrie Irving has been a superstar, and he's only 25. So Celtics are getting younger, they're getting faster, and they are getting more offensively prone. They could not shoot the ball other than Isaiah Thomas last year. You had all these issues where Avery Bradley was your second best shooter, and he's not a good shooter. He's an okay shooter, but not a great shooter. But now you have Kyrie, great shooter. Al Horford can stretch the floor. Jaylen Brown has worked on the shot a lot. Jason Tatum is a great stretch player. He can be a 3 or a 4. Gordon Hayward, knockdown shooter and can drive. So you're getting more offensive. So the Celtics, you're looking good for the future, but the Cavs, I wouldn't be surprised if this makes them at least go longer into a series with the Warriors. They're not perfect yet, but this trade can make them go longer into a series in the NBA Finals with the Warriors.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing Cleveland's probably banking on is winning changes minds. So I understand Isaiah wants every dime he can get. And certainly, he deserves it. He's gotten to the point in his career where he's
going to get as much contract. This is his time to get as much money as he can.
Yeah, but if this team takes the Warriors to 7, maybe even 6, and Game 6 is competitive, or wins the whole thing, I'm not saying Isaiah's going to take a huge pay cut, but if LeBron wants back in and, they acquire something at the deadline or whatever, and everyone needs to take a little bit less to make this work to keep winning, look, winning talks. And I understand the Celtics won a lot last year, but Isaiah's never been to the NBA Finals. Isaiah's never been that close. I think getting that close, which I think this Cavs team is now set up to take the Warriors team to 6, that he might leave a little bit on the table if it means staying in Cleveland and making a long run at this thing.
Yeah, give him a little taste of it, really.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it really is. They're set that because if they get there, it's going to be hard to say no to that.
So last year it was the Warriors are way up top. Cleveland is farther behind them. Boston's farther behind Cleveland. Now, Cleveland's worked its way a little bit up towards the Warriors. Boston's worked a little bit of the way up towards Cleveland. The next move is the most important move. Who's going to make the next move? The Celtics don't have much left now that they traded everything. That's why I think they shouldn't have traded that Brooklyn pick. They still have the Lakers pick for next year, 2 through 5, or if not, they have the ability to choose either Philly or Sacramento for 2019. So it's a future pick. But Cleveland, they don't really have much option unless they trade K-Love, which I'm sure they'll be willing to do. So who makes that next move is going to make a huge difference into the next year, 2 years, and 3 years down the line in the NBA.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not in a spot where I think it's going to happen anytime soon. The guys that would make sense for Cleveland, Paul George, there's no chance that happens until the deadline. If it looks like that's not going to work out, and Sam Presti doesn't think he's going to stay, and he needs to make a move to convince Russ to stay. DeMarcus Cousins, they don't know if this pairing is going to work yet. If it looks like it's going to work, and they think that Cousins will re-sign, which, hey, if it works out, there's a chance. They're building something down there. He's not going to be available until the deadline. The one guy who would really help Boston and to an extent would help Cleveland as well is Marc Gasol. But I don't think the Grizzlies are at the point where they're ready to tear it completely down. I think they still think they have enough to make a run at the playoffs, and I think that's all they really care about. They know they're not a championship contender. They know they're not really that close, but I don't think they're ready to completely say goodbye to grit and grind yet. But that's the guy. I mean, that's the piece. And both teams, I think, have what it would take to get him, whether it's that Lakers or Kings or Sixers pick, whatever it ends up conveying from Boston, or if it's the Brooklyn pick that Cleveland now has. One of those could get the job done. That's the one player who is probably available right now, but even he, we don't know what the Grizzlies, what they want to do. Everyone else is going to be a deadline kind of thing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But in terms of ammunition to get it done, I would say Cleveland has a better shot, depending on where Brooklyn is. If Brooklyn is doing real crappy at the deadline, they can have almost anyone they want who is an up-and-coming free agent or who might want out. Boston, just because there's a chance that pick doesn't convey for 2 or 3 years with all the protections on it and everything, it's still a very valuable asset to have, but it's not nearly as valuable because both of those teams, Sacramento or the Lakers, are in positions where they might not be so bad, the next couple of years. Because it's protected 2 through 5 for the Lakers. Okay, if the Lakers finish 10th in the Western Conference and they don't have a top 5 pick, let's say they pick 11th, that's what the Celtics are getting. Or
no.
Oh?
So technically it's protected 1 and then 6 through 30.
So okay.
So if it falls between 2 and 5, the Celtics get it, and if it doesn't, then it's the next year choice between Philly and Sacramento.
Okay, so let's say it doesn't fall inside of 2 through 5. Right. Let's say it's 6, or it's 1. They get to pick the next year. Philly, is going to make the playoffs this year, in my opinion. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't make the playoffs the year after. And Sacramento, with the number of veterans they picked up and the number of young, promising players they have, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but they're not. I don't think they're going to be picking top 5. They'll be picking toward the back half of the top 10, maybe even a little, maybe like 11 or 12. So, yes, it's a valuable piece, but it's not as valuable a piece as the Brooklyn pick for this year, especially in this draft. So in terms of who's got the ammunition to get something done sooner, it'd be Cleveland. And I think Cleveland will get something done. I think DeMarcus Cousins is the move to make, mostly because I think OKC will not be ready to give up on that deal, on that pairing at the deadline. And I don't think the Cousins-Davis thing is going to work out, and they're going to want to kind of recoup some of what they lost. So I could see them taking the plunge on a guy who fits next to Anthony Davis in Thompson. It's not a great fit, but he fits, and he's a younger player, and he's going to cost less and a potential top 3 pick. So Cousins in Cleveland, yikes. That
battles with Golden State.
That is at Warriors level. I mean, I would love to see that. That would be something to behold.
Right, and that's why this trade is so interesting, because it gives so many options down the line too. Not only just now, but both teams can be revamped easy. And that's why this is such a bold trade by both teams, but certainly could work out, and it certainly could deteriorate a team for years. I'm speaking mostly of the Celtics. It could deteriorate them. But, I think overall, fair trade. Fair is fair. We'll see. May the best team win, I guess, right?
Yeah, fair is fair. I don't think it didn't change anything in terms of standings. So, we'll see what happens. Cleveland, I think, won. Boston, if Kyrie re-signs, good trade for him. If Kyrie doesn't re-sign in 2 years, then this was a colossal mistake. But we have to wait 2 years to find out.
But you got to take those risks sometimes.
Yeah, that's part of it.
This is for the Celtics, the time to do it. So I think that wraps it up, dude.
Yeah, I think we're good. NBA training camp about a month away. Got these cool new Nike uniforms. Some of them are cool, some not so much.
When we get back to school, we'll be back to school in a week. When we get back to school, we are doing and since we could even do it with one computer, power rankings. We can put it up on the screen. Best New Jerseys.
Ooh, that would be cool, because some of them are really cool and some of them are really
suck. Yeah.
And hey, we should know by then, because these are just the association and the icon uniforms. We should have I don't even know what they're called, but the other 2 uniforms, which apparently
I think we're getting the first alternate soon, but the second one won't come out for a few months, I think.
That's annoying. But
yeah,
sources tell me Timberwolves lime green jersey. I'm excited.
Is your source 2K?
I have many sources.
Also, if you're a fan of any team and your player is on the cover of 2K, get ready for him to leave. That's just what's happened in the past 4 years, so get ready for him to leave.
Who was it? It was Paul George last year?
Yep.
Who was it the year before? LeBron? Was it 2 years ago?
KD.
That was 2014. And then he left. Okay.
LeBron, KD, Paul George, Kyrie.
Oh. Yikes.
The one in the middle was Steph with James Harden and someone else. That
yeah, that one was dumb.
But, yeah, for the past 5 years, the main player on the cover, out.
Well, okay. Speaking of players omitted, the Knicks just released that season ticket advertising thing, and it's got a bunch of players on it. Guess who's not on it?
Melo.
It's Porzingis, Ntilikina, and Hernan Gomez. So,
Celtics fans, it's okay. At least we're not the Knicks. Yeah. I'm sorry, Josh.
Yeah.
Hey, at least we're the Dolphins. Oh wait.
Hey, you know what? Jay Cutler's an improvement on Tannehill. You heard it here first.
Shut the hell up. Go away. I'm done with this.
We'll still win 9 games. I mean, the schedule is really tough, so I could see 8 or 7, but
How far down you gonna go, guy?
No lower than 7.
I'd say 6.
I think the over under on them is 8.5. And
Really?
yeah, I would take the over, or I would take it even. I wouldn't take the.
I'm going under. Make it happen.
I mean, look, between the Jets and the Bills, it's 4 wins right there. You got to find 3 other wins. That's not that difficult. Chargers, that's 1. Tampa, I think they could beat Tampa. It's 2.
Between the Jets and the Bills, that's 4 wins. That's a bold strategy.
I don't. The Jets might not win a game.
Yeah, the Jets.
And then Buffalo, we always beat them at home, and then we always play them tough on the road. So, they stink. We'll see what happens.
3.
And then I believe we're playing the Saints. That's always tough, but they don't have a secondary.
They got AP now.
They do have AP. We'll have to see what happens.
I just want the Patriots to go a measly 13-2. Coast in the playoffs. We'll be fine.
13-3. They have to go 13.
Math.
I don't think we've ever had an NFL season where we just went into it and we were all like, yeah, I mean, that's the team. That's what it is. I can't remember a year, not even 2007, where everyone's just been like, that's the favorite.
Wrap-up question right here. Patriots are the Golden State Warriors of the NFL.
No.
Explain.
Because Golden State's done it with the same core. Granted, they've made additions, but it's been the same core. With New England, I mean, it's someone different every year. I mean, someone different is the one who's somehow pulling something out of their ass, whether it's Eric Blunt or James White in the Super Bowl, or Chris Hogan was a big thing this year. Next year, it'll probably be Brandon Cooks. That team is a turnstile.
Brandon Cooks is fast as hell.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Oh, boy, watch out.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to compare between sports. They're the Golden State of this or the Golden State of that. Because, you have to look philosophically deeper. Golden State changed the way that teams are literally playing the game. The Patriots didn't change the way people play football. They just did it better than everyone else. The Warriors changed the fundamental way that we play basketball and we position for basketball, so it's different. Or I know the Yankees and Red Sox have gone back and forth being they're the Golden State. Being the Golden State doesn't mean just having a large collection of talent. It means that you have to fundamentally change the way people play the game, and then when people try to change to compete with you, you just beat them at it because you're just better at doing it because you started it. So New England is not the goal.
A perfect example of the Warriors fundamentally changing is that the Celtics are fundamentally changing their system right now because of the Warriors.
Yeah, everyone's doing it. Look, big men are dead. That's why what New Orleans is doing 10 years ago would be unstoppable. Now, It's not going to work.
Right. So, well, that'll wrap it up.
All right, that's it. We'll be back at school soon.
Next week, we'll see you later with the power rankings. Yeah,
we'll do uniform power rankings. We're going to do this from one computer. It'll be great. He's Mike Niddle. I'm Josh McCauley. Give you a lot of fun, folks. NBA is a drastically different place.